Hello and welcome to my complete beginner's guide for Stormgate. Today we'll be covering win conditions, fundamentals, basic controls, and much more, as well as I will provide a build order for both the Vanguard and the Infernal factions at the very end. So starting off with win conditions, the only win condition in Stormgate is to destroy all of the enemy's buildings. This is a lot like StarCraft 2 and unlike AoE 4, which has multiple win conditions. Moving on to the fundamentals of Stormgate, when you spawn in as the Vanguard faction, you spawn in with 1 scout and 8 workers. Workers, also known as Bobs, can do a number of things such as build structures, harvest resources, and repair your structures / units, as well as attack the enemy if they attack early on. So they can gather 2 types of resources. This orange one is called Luminite, you can see it right there, and down here is Therium. Luminite is used for your basic units and structures, and it is definitely the more important resource in the game. You need a lot more of it. Therium is the more advanced resource. It's a lot like Vespian gas from StarCraft 2 or gold or stone from Age of Empires 4. It is used for advanced units and upgrades and upgrading your command center, stuff like that. There are other ways of obtaining resources other than just gathering from the resource nodes. If you look to the center of the map, there are things called resource camps, which have creeps, basically enemy AI, that you can attack and kill with your army to gather resources. I think the level 1 camps give you like 40 Luminite, the level 2 camps give you 80 Luminite, and so on. As well as I believe from some you can probably get Therium as well. But more on creep camps later. Let's go over the basic controls of Stormgate. You can left click any of your units to select them in Stormgate and right click to move them around or give them orders such as gathering a resource. To build a structure, you can use your hotkey Z and then press the relative hotkey to the structure you want to build, and then left click to put it down or right click to cancel. As you can see, our building will start building that structure. Additionally, if you want to select a bunch of units, you can drag a box over them and it will select everything that is within your box. And if you want to select a bunch of units that are all of the same type, you can hold down Control and then hover over that unit and it will select all of that unit of that type that are within your window. So now that our guy is done building, we will send it back to Luminite. Another type of movement that is used primarily by military units in Stormgate is the attack move. Basically, if you hit A and then left click in a direction, they will walk there and attack anything that is in their vicinity. The difference between that and just normal right clicking to move is if you right click to move and there's an enemy there, they will move all the way to that spot before attacking the enemy. If you A click, they will attack the enemy on their way there and not move all the way to where you clicked. Another important feature in Stormgate is shift queuing. Basically, it allows you to give your units multiple actions without having to watch them the entire time. So if we focus on the scout and we right click somewhere and then hold down shift and then right click somewhere else, you can basically tell it to move multiple places. So something you might want to do is if you want to attack the enemy workers and with your scout, but you don't want to attack their base, is you can move the scout here and then A click into the worker camp, and this way it'll attack the workers. If you have your scout back here and you just A click onto this, it will most likely attack the building instead of the workers, so shift queuing can be extremely helpful, especially when you're harassing, but there are numerous ways of using this and I won't go through all of them. You can also like shift queue a builder, you can move them here and then try to build a building, and then if you want to build more buildings with the same worker, you can hold down shift and just build multiple. A very important part of any RTS is the minimap, usually found at the bottom right or bottom left hand corner of the screen, and Stormgate is no exception. The minimap shows you the location of all the resource deposits across the map, marked by the yellow and green dots, with yellow being Luminite, as you can see it corresponds right there, and green being Therium, as well as it shows you the different creep camps. So this is like a health camp, this is a resource camp, this is a speed camp, and this is a vision camp, as you can see on the minimap. The minimap also allows you to move your camera very quickly and precisely, so I can look at different creep camps or the enemy camp or my own camp. As you can see, most of the minimap is dark right now, other than a slight radius around my base. That's because it's a fog of war, which means you won't be able to see any enemies moving through that unless you have buildings or units which reveal the fog of war. As you can see, as I move my scout through, you can see him moving and revealing the fog of war, but he doesn't permanently reveal it, it's just in a radius around him. Another important part of the minimap is it allows you to see enemies that aren't directly on your screen. As you can see, we're in front of a resource camp and this is an enemy and it's showing up as a little red dot on our minimap. Other important information on our UI is shown on the bottom left. We have a timer, which is important for knowing what time it is in the game. As you become more advanced, you'll be looking at this to see when enemy timing attacks will be coming, or to see how far behind or ahead you are on your own build order to see when you can use an effective timing attack. Then we have our total Luminite, and we have our total Ethereum banks, and these show you, how much Luminite and Ethereum you have. Then we have our supply, which basically shows how much population we have. So if we build a Bob, as you can see, it goes up 1 in supply. If you stop it, it goes back down. And so basically, if you have a bunch of units queued, you'll actually have a higher supply even if they're not alive yet. But once it spawns in, our supply will stay at 10. And basically, the way you increase supply is by building habitats. It provides 15 supply. Or for Infernals, you build a meat farm, but more on different buildings later on. Another important UI element in Stormgate is the idle worker UI. So if we send a worker here and have him doing nothing, as you can see, he is idle, so it shows up as 1. So you have 1 idle worker. The default hotkey to select the idle worker is I. So if we select a different worker and press I, as you can see, we select him and we send him back. This is very important. You don't ever want idle workers, so make sure that that is at a 0 or grayed out at all times. So we touched on hotkeys earlier in the video, but I'd like to cover them in more detail now. Basically, if you select a unit in Stormgate, you can see what they can do in the bottom left and all their hotkeys that are associated with it. So builders can attack, hold stop, hold position, build structures, etc. If you want to build a structure, you can press Z and then the associated hotkey with the structure you want to build. So if you want to build a barracks, you press D and then left click. Other things to note is that this game does have quick macros, which is unlike any other RTS game that I can think of. So if you press Q, you can actually tell the game to build a structure, but it will select a worker for you. So I press Q and then S, and then it selects one of the Bobs to go build it. And I don't have to shift Q this Bob back to the Lumina. It'll go there automatically for me, which is very helpful. I don't know any other RTS that has something like that. Then you can also press W and it will train workers, infantry from your most available thing. So if I press S here, it'll start automatically training it in the barracks without me actually having to click on the barracks. You can do this for your mech and flying units as well. And then also there are upgrades with R and T, with T being the more advanced upgrades and R being the infantry upgrades. Another important way of controlling your units in Stormgate is through the use of control groups. So basically you can have a set number of units that are all hotkeyed to the same number, and this allows you to control different armies at the same time. So say we wanted these 2 Bobs in their own army, we can hit Control 1 and we'll throw them in their own control group. So if I'm on this Bob and I hit 1, and if I double click 1, it'll basically center me on them. And then we could put these guys into 2 and these guys into 3. And then we have 3 different armies that we can send in different directions and control separately. And this is extremely helpful when you have different armies that are harassing, like one big army for attacking the enemy, stuff like that. So extremely helpful. The other thing you can do with control groups is you can actually add buildings to control groups. So say you wanted to put your command post on 4. If you're over here but you need to build something on your base, you can double click 4, it'll center on your base, and then we can build something like that. The other way of centering on your base instead of using control groups is you can use a thing called camera positions. And basically if we go into our options and our hotkeys and we scroll down, you can see that we have focus on jump location and set jump location. So basically you can set a camera location with control F1. So if we do that here, we can hit control F1, and then if we go somewhere else on the screen and hit F1, it'll jump us back to the camera location, and you can do that for all your bases. I'd say it's best to set camera locations at your bases, and then I would also set camera locations where you think you're going to have different battles, or if you're like harassing the enemy, stuff like that. So the last category in our basic controls of Stormgate is rally points. As you can see, our command post has a moving line towards Luminite. This means that if you create a worker, it will go and gather the Luminite. You can also direct this towards Ethereum, or you can direct it somewhere and it'll just send workers there. So the way you direct it is by right clicking. Left clicking won't do anything. And you can do this for anything. So if you want your barracks to send their army somewhere, you can select that and it will send your barracks to create an army person right there. The other things you can do with this is all of your command posts are set automatically to Q. So if we add multiple command posts, which we don't, we can press Q and then right click on something. And actually we do. It'll send all of the workers made there to those things. Another thing you can do is with W, it is the hotkey for all of our barracks, so we can have them all rally with W, and same for E if we had the mech bay and stuff like that. Rally points are extremely useful to automatically send units, and don't forget them. to use them, like when you have a new barracks or when you build a new command post at like an expansion. And if you're fighting the enemy across the map, I'd highly consider pressing W or E and having all of your army rally across the map towards where you're fighting, so your reinforcements automatically arrive without you having to go back to your base and get them to come to you. Now that we've covered all of the fundamentals and basic controls of Stormgate, let's get into the different buildings and units. So starting off with the Vanguard faction, we'll start off with our command post. This is actually an upgraded command post. This is just a basic command post. You can upgrade the command post to Essential Command to enable a bunch of new tech, as well as you can train bobs like we've seen before. It also acts as a resource drop-off point for Luminite and Therium. Additionally, there is an ability called Bob Overcharge, which grants friendly Bobs 100% increased damage, 100 armor, and 100% increased construction speed for 30 seconds. This has a number of uses. You can use it to defend your Bobs if they are being harassed, as they will take much less damage. Or if you're trying to expand, say with these guys we were trying to expand, we can decide to build a command post, and while it's building, you can actually use the Bob Overcharge, as you can see, and they will build the command post faster. So I would suggest when you're getting your second expansion to always use this, as it allows you to get your second command post a lot faster, as they'll all be working at 100% construction speed. Our next building in the list of buildings for the Vanguard is our Habitat. It provides 15 supply, however it does have upgrades. So if you upgrade yourself to a central command over here, you can see at the bottom it says Solar Habitat and Rampart. So basically you can either choose to upgrade your habitats either to a Solar Habitat or a Rampart. Solar Habitats grant 5 supply, and it allows the structure to use the Solar Charge ability, which basically it increases the production speed and attack speed of a nearby structure by 25%. I didn't show you Rampart, but basically it increases the health by 400. Basically the habitats start out at 400 health, so Solar Habitat increases it by 200. Rampart, here I'll show you real quick. So here's a Rampart. It also grants +5 supply, and basically its ability is for 50 energy, it increases the armor of a nearby friendly structure by 200 for 20 seconds. So as you can see, it basically makes this thing indestructible. Oh, I forgot to mention that the Solar Habitat can also increase the attack speed of a nearby structure by 25%. So if you have like a turret, that can be useful to use as well. So moving on to the first military production for the Vanguard, the barracks can produce Lancers, Scouts, Exos, and Medtechs. Medtechs are only available once you upgrade your command post to level 2, and Exos are only available once you build your Biokinetics lab, which is the hotkey C right here. The Biokinetics lab also has all of your upgrades for your units found in the barracks. I won't go through them in this video, but you can go through them on your own time. Basically, the Lancer is a melee unit. The Scout is your scouting unit, obviously. The Exo is your basic marine, and the Medtech heals. Moving on to the Mech Bay, which is the next building. As you can see, it's F. The Mech Bay allows you to build hedgehogs off the bat, and then you need your machine lab so that you can build atlases, and then I believe you need to upgrade your command post to build the Vulcans, most likely. So basically, hedgehog, fast moving, can attack ground and air. Vulcans are heavy mechs, can only attack ground, and atlases are your basically siege tanks of the Vanguard. So your machine lab is the same as the Biokinetics, where it contains the upgrades and also enables a couple of units. And basically, as you can see here, it has a bunch of upgrades, which again, we won't go through in this video. Finally, we have our scrapyard on this top, which allows you to gather directly from Therium. This is helpful if you don't want to build a whole ass command post, because the scrapyard only costs 100, whereas a command post costs 400. So definitely useful if you're wanting it to gather Therium. So moving on to our Hangar Bay, which is our last production building for the military in Stormgate. You can build Hornets, evac ships, and Sentinels. Hornets are sort of like the Wraith from StarCraft 1. Evacs are, just like any drop ship, and then except that they don't heal like the ones from StarCraft 2. And then Sentinels are sort of a support craft. And yeah, so you can read what they do. But anyways, those are our production buildings. Our last building for the Vanguard as of now is the Sentry Post, which can attack right now. As you can see, it's a nice little attack that doesn't really do much, but actually it can do a number of things. So if you put a Bob in it, you can actually put units in it. And we actually have to get that guy out to read what it does though. Bob, it basically gains a repair beam that can repair a new nearby mechanical unit or structure. It cannot attack though. Lancer, it gains a powerful low-range attack that bounces to nearby targets. Scout, it senses nearby enemy units underneath the fog of war, so it's like a sensor tower. Exo, it gains a powerful long-range splash attack, attacks ground and air. And Medtech, it gains an aura that heals nearby biological units. Actually, the Medtech one was just buffed in a patch. I put a video out on that recently. But yeah, so that is all of the different buildings for the Vanguard. Now we can go up to the Vanguard's abilities. Bob Overcharge already showed y'all what it does. It has 100% increased damage, 100 armor, and 100% increased construction speed for all Bobs in the vicinity of a command post. As you can see, those didn't gain it, but these Bobs did. Next, we have a deploy sensor drone, where basically it deploys a sensor drone from your closest command post, sends it across the map, obviously with a placeholder texture, and it reveals anything below it through the fog of war. So it will travel over here. It costs 25 energy. It remains at the target location for 125 seconds. However, the enemy can't attack it. As you can see, they're going for it right now. However, they can't attack air, so they can't attack it, funnily enough. And finally, we have shields up, which places a shield on a friendly target unit that absorbs 1,000 damage over 10 seconds, which can absolutely be insane. As you can see, a base Lancer only has 240 health, so basically this adds 4 times the health of a base Lancer. So we can probably even put that on there, as you can see, and this has 1,050 health now. So moving on to the Infernal faction, we haven't seen them at all this video, but I have a base going here, and we will go through all of the different parts of the Infernal faction, starting off with its command post, also known as its Greater Shrine. Basically, the workers of the Infernals are the Imps, and they cost 50 resources to build, and a big difference between the Vanguard and the Infernals is they act sort of like the Zerg, where you can basically have charges and build all of your units at the same time. So as you can see, we have 3 on the Infernal Imps, and if I hit it 3 times, it spawns them out immediately instead of waiting for them to build. And as you can see, we're slowly getting them back. This also sort of works like warp gates, I guess, from Protoss. It's more like a warp gate than like the Zerg. So that is how the Imps work. Again, the other thing that a shrine can do is morph into a Greater Shrine, obviously right here, and it enables a couple things, not as many as the Vanguard does. So starting off with the most basic building, which is the meat farm, it provides 10 supply and then generates fell hogs that provide +2 supply and can defend against ground-based attacks. We have one right here. So the interesting thing is meat farms actually provide 16 supply if all your fell hogs are alive. So this is what the fell hogs look like. You cannot control them or anything. They are just allied units, and they will attack the enemy if you get attacked. So it's nice early defense for your units, actually. Very effective, and it's nice that you don't have to, I mean, you need the supply anyways. So it's basically a free defense. Moving on to our next building, it's the Iron Vault. It's basically the barracks of the Infernals, and you can build up Brutes, Magmadons, and Hellborn. Brutes are your basic melee Infernal warrior. They can also use an ability called Sunder, where they split into 2 Fiends, which are fast-moving little guys that do a little bit of damage. Additionally, a really cool thing is if you have a group of Brutes all selected, the ones with the lowest health will split first, which is very interesting. Also, on death, they split into the 2 Fiends as well. Magmadons are way bigger, and they have a lot more health. They have heavy armor, and they move slowly. They also have a trample ability where they do damage to everything around them with an upgrade, which they can stun. Hellborn are an artillery unit like that. Atlas, I believe, and basically long-range attack with a bonus damage versus structures. Next, we have the Conclave. As you can see, it's F right here. The Conclave builds Gaunts, which actually look a lot like Clinks if you play Dota 2. They're just a basic ranged Infernal Thrall, and it attacks Infest, meaning that when the unit dies that you attacked, it turns into an imp like these guys. So that can be really strong if you go creep early with a bunch of Gaunts and get a bunch of imps from everything you kill, and then attack with that push right there. You can also build Evacs, which have an ability that puts down this thing called Shroud, which we'll cover later. And we also have Weavers, which have abilities which is Lash and Consume, which we won't get into, but it's a little bit like Vipers from StarCraft 2. Moving on, we have the Twilight Spire, which is the building that builds the Infernal's flyers. So we have Shadow Flyers, which are, it's a flying scout and anti-air suicider. So it's a lot like the, I don't remember what they're called, but from StarCraft 1, the Zerg had a flyer that suicided and did a lot of damage. versus enemy flyers. And then we have a Spriggan, which is a lot like the Hornet from the Vanguards. So it moves fast, attacks ground and air. So those are our 3 military production buildings. Now we have our Shadow Cleft, which is right there, and it's the research structure for the barracks, or you know, as it's called, the Iron Vault. But it's just like the Biokinetics Lab. It provides the brutes with an upgrade that grants them 10 additional bonus armor, and it gives them an additional fiend when they sunder their soul. And then we have the Magmadon upgrade, where it stuns nearby enemy ground units, which I think is a really strong upgrade. Then we have our Ritual Chamber right here, which provides upgrades for our flyers and our gaunts as well. So our last building as the Infernals is our Shroud Stone, which spreads this thing called Shroud. Basically, if you're on Shroud, you get this extra white health bar, which I think it's an extra 50% health, though I don't remember. No, it's just 15 versus like 60. However, if you're off the Shroud, some types of units will lose their extra health. I don't remember if imps do or not, but I know some retain it and some don't. It may just be that fiends lose their extra health when they're off of the Shroud. And basically, there are a couple ways of making more Shroud across the map, but placing Shroud Stones is just like a creep tumor. If you put it down, as you can see, the Shroud spawns around it. And basically that is all of the... Oh yeah, and Shroud Stones also do have a basic attack. They're like the turrets that the Vanguard have. So as you can see, I would say that the Infernal macro is a lot easier because you get these charges, which allows you to spawn your stuff a lot quicker. So if you forget to train stuff, you can just spawn up an entire army like that, right? So we got everything right here, which makes it really easy to spawn in things. Actually, since we have this is the evac. The only difference is that it can slam into the ground and cause Shroud to spawn around it, which again gives your troops this extra health and stuff. So moving on to the abilities, we won't be able to cast them all because we don't have enough Animus. But basically the way Animus is collected is your units collect Animus when a unit nearby dies, and the amount is increased by 50% when the enemy unit dies on Shroud. So that's a reason to spread your Shroud across the world. And basically this also shows that if any enemy units die around this structure or your greater shrine, then you will also collect 1 Animus supply from that as well. So starting off at the top from the left, we have Summon Effigy, which provides that location with Shroud for 60 seconds. So as you can see, oh, that didn't work, I guess. As you can see, it spreads our Shroud like that. We have refreshes the all charges on a target friendly shrine, Iron Vault, Conclave, or Twilight Spire. People are saying this is really OP because basically what you can do is you can go here, spawn everything, and then use this on this, and then get all 3 charges back, which allows you to spawn stuff extremely quickly. So that may be a little bit OP, something to keep in mind. But now we have Nightfall Infestation, which infests enemy units in the target area and reduces their vision by 50% for 10 seconds. So again, the infest is the thing where if you kill the enemy units, you get the fiends, I believe. So moving on, the Infernals actually have 3 more abilities than Vanguard does. So they have a Shroud Stone manifestation where it summons a Shroud Stone near an existing shrine or Shroud Stone. The summoned Shroud Stone gains 100% increased attack speed and damage for 30 seconds. So you could put this down in the middle of the fight and hopefully it would help you change the tide of battle. It also says increase all Shroud coverage by 100% for 30 seconds. Then we have Shadowfall, which covers the entire map in Shroud for 30 seconds. That seems pretty crazily OP. And finally, we have the Summon Flayed Dragon, which basically summons a powerful enthralled dragon at a target Shroud Stone. It can use Fetid Breath and Inhale Poison abilities, and has a Parasitic Soul passive ability. So the Fetid Breath, I know, deals damage over time, and I think it may slow, and then the Inhale Poison ability inhales like charges of poison from the enemies that you put Fetid Breath on, and it heals the dragon. So that's not exactly what it does, but obviously I can't spawn it in right now. And then it also has the Parasitic Soul, which I'd assume probably just is the getting the Animus. But as you can see, it costs a lot. It's 500 each resource and then 300 Animus as well. So those are all the rituals and units and buildings for the Infernals. So let's get into our build orders. Starting off with our Vanguard build order, you're going to want to start producing Bobs right away. And the first thing you're going to do is at 200 minerals, you're going to send 2 workers to the ramp and overcharge the command post. So this is a build guide that I found by a guy named Probe on the Discord, and it seems to be a very good basic build order to get you set up in a good place. So we are not at 200 minerals yet, we're still producing workers. Right now we will send 2 over in a sec though. We'll pre-select them, send them to our base to drop off any minerals, and then we will bring them over here and we will overcharge our command post and then build a barracks to start off with. So make sure you have both of them building it. and continue to produce bobs as well. After the barracks, you're going to want to produce a depot or a habitat. Oops. Make sure this guy keeps building it as well and continue to produce bobs the entire time. And then finally, the last thing you're going to build is a sentry post, which we don't have enough luminite yet, but we will soon. It costs 100. Then we will leave a single spot right there to build with our workers. And again, keep producing workers. As soon as you have enough luminite, you're going to want to train one lancer. So we will be there in a sec. It costs 100 luminite to build a lancer. There we go. And basically, we're either going to set our lancer right there, or we will put it into our what's it called, our sentry post. So after these guys are done, you can shift queue them back to the luminite, and then we will send our command post to rally onto Ethereum because we will have 12 people on luminite. Let's continue to build more guys, and if you want to, you can build a second lancer, or you can just leave the one for now. But we will build two to be safe. As you can see, we can put our one lancer in there, and then our second one can go right there. So once we reach 300 minerals, the last part of this build guide, which is just simple, you can transition basically into whatever you want. This is just to get you up and started and keep you from dying to early attacks. You're going to want to send all of the bots that you have on Ethereum and +2 from Luminite to your natural to expand at 300 minerals. So we can send this guy here to block, and we're at 300, so we'll grab our Ethereum and our Luminite guys. We'll move our Lancers so they can actually come through, and we will build a command post. So we'll send our guy back, and that should block him. I don't know if we try to walk out, I don't know if that'll work or not, but okay, let's put down our command post. And something to know is you can actually use overcharge as you're building command posts. So we do that, and these guys should start building faster. Okay, so it looks like I didn't place that exactly correctly. Basically, you would want it so that a single Lancer can block the way, maybe like that, to keep it from enemies can get through, but maybe it's just that your guys can push through, I don't know. Then remember to keep building bobs the entire time. I sort of forgot, but that's okay. Make sure this is rallied onto that, don't forget, and then I would shift queue these guys on to that Luminite. And that is the end of this basic build order for the Vanguard. You can pretty much go anywhere from here. You can go into your mech bay. You could upgrade your command post into, or upgrade your command post and get some hangars. You can build the biokinetic slab and build more barracks to get exos. It's whatever your opponent is going. We won't go into that. This is just a very basic build order for our beginner's guide. So let's move on to the Infernals. So for our Infernals build order, you're going to want to start off by building a Conclave right away. And then as soon as we can afford it, we're also going to build an Iron Vault. And after that, we will move one imp to Ethereum. So let's build our Iron Vault right here. And then we will move one imp to Ethereum. And then as soon as we have the money, we will build 3 imps. So here's our first. And we will have our 2 more in a sec. So there's our second, and we need our third. And after we get our third imp, we're going to want to build a meat farm. So we almost have enough for a meat farm. There we go. There's our meat farm building. And then as soon as we get to about 1 minute and 6 seconds, you're going to build your first gaunt. And this will be to deal with a dog that comes if you're going against the Vanguard. And after our gaunt, we will be making another imp. So after this, once this finishes, we will be building our brute. Just gotta give it a sec. We need 150 for that. We get our brute. Now we have a gaunt and a brute, and you're gonna A move into their natural, and basically this will put some pressure on early and make it so that they can't just expand for free. Now we're going to want to build up more imps while we can, and we'll want to build another gaunt at 140 or so. So there's our other gaunt, and we can move that with the rest of our army as well. And then we're going to want to continue to build a couple more imps, and basically that's the whole beginning of your build order. It puts you in a pretty good place. You have the meat thing and you have a few units to put on pressure to them, and you can either decide to expand if they're, if they're expanding as well, or you can decide to build some more production buildings and try to overwhelm. Though I'd say that with the Infernals, expanding is probably your best bet in general. But yeah, we can, they have some stuff, so we'll run away. You could also expand into some more tech if you want. You could upgrade it to a greater shrine. You could build a Twilight Spire to maybe harass them a bit. You have lots of options. You could try, getting your Shadow Cleft or your Ritual Chamber. It all really depends on what you scout the enemies doing, and it just really depends on the game, which is why we're not going into more detail. So that ends our build order for the Infernals. Let's get into some final remarks now. So a couple of great places I have found for information about Stormgate are stormgateworld.com. They have leaderboards, content. The leaderboard's really interesting. It lets you see who all the top leaders are. They use an API, and you can count out the number of Vanguards versus Infernals to see, if there are more on the top of the leaderboard. They also have some content, so this is made by general people as well. And, they have news as well on the side. Next, you have just the Stormgate's website. They have information here, though not as much as the other websites, but definitely check it out if you haven't before. It's plain.stormgate.com. Next, we have Stormgate Hub, which definitely has a lot of stuff on it. It has news, as you can see. It has builds for the Human Vanguard and the Infernal Host, though there aren't a lot yet. Then they have some guides as well. I haven't looked through these very much, but definitely can check it out if you want. I think they're very helpful. And finally, I found this on the subreddit today. It's luminite.gg/ well, I guess there's a home, but it has very interesting stats on the win rates of over like time played versus the two different things. So it looks like, starting off, Infernals have a much higher win rate at the beginning of the game, and then later on, past the 12-minute mark, Vanguard starts winning. So very interesting stats. Definitely, this was made using the API as well, so definitely interesting for sure. And then eventually, they said that they'll have build orders and stuff as well. So just some resources that you can use if you are interested in those. So anyways, I know I didn't cover all the units and upgrades fully in detail. There just wasn't enough time in this video. This video is already over 30 minutes as it is. However, I will have a couple videos coming out later this week, probably tomorrow, that cover both the Vanguard and the Infernal units and upgrades in detail. We'll go into all the nitty-gritty stats and stuff like that if you're wanting that kind of thing. So eventually I will have them linked once they are created. And additionally, I'll be making guides and build orders, and I will be also casting games in the future, so subscribe if you want to catch my future content. If you made it this far, you're absolutely a G. I can't believe you watched this long of a video. I really appreciate it, guys. It means so much to me. And I hope you found this video really helpful. I really poured my heart and soul into it. I found single tip I could find about RTS games in general, about Stormgate. I put everything I could into this video. It's the longest video I've ever made. It's taken me the longest to make it, and I really hope that it really helps a bunch of people get into the RTS genre. I tried to come at it from a beginner standpoint instead of just a lot of beginners guides assume you know a ton about gaming. So hopefully this will really be a good guide for people who are just getting into the RTS genre for the first time in their lives. And yeah, so the open beta should be live for everyone right now. Good luck in your matches this week. I hope you do great. Remember to stay positive. Treat every loss as a learning opportunity. I think that's the best advice I've ever received, especially when it comes to competitive online gaming. Losses aren't something that should make you feel bad about yourself. Just treat it as a learning opportunity. You learn more from your losses than your wins for sure. And yeah, good luck, and thanks for watching, y'all. I hope you have a wonderful day.